I'm making a custom motorcycle frame for a Honda Grom, and in this video we go over how I notch the tubes for this frame using a simple angle grinder. My next steps, I'm going to go ahead and notch this guy here. Do my little notching on here, and that basically involves measuring this. So we've got an 1.5 inch pipe here, so about 1/2 inch, which is 1/3 of the pipe diameter. We'll mark up here, and then we'll go ahead and cut our notches into that with the angle grinder. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and be precise on this pipe because I'm going to be cutting both ends and everything, and the other end will be a more complicated cut up there. So I'm going to go ahead and try and describe lines, sort of reference lines on both sides here, so I know when I go to do that one that it's parallel with this one down here and everything works out the way we want it. All right, so in order to describe my lines on here and make sure that they're absolutely straight, and then the other ones are going to be parallel or whatever, exactly the way I want them to be on the opposite side of the pipe, exactly. We're going to do, we've got 3 things basically. We've got this guy, a little square, an adjustable square. I can adjust this thing in and out, and it's got a little ruler on it, and it's also got a level on it. And so those are key facets of this. I can set this pipe is 1.5 inches. I can set this thing to 3/4 inch, which is half the diameter of this pipe. So I can set this guy on here like this, and I know that this mark right here, this is half of the pipe right there. And then in order to get the other side, I want to go, and all I need to do is switch it over there like that. But I need to make sure I'm not wobbling around like that, and that's where this level comes in. Make sure that I'm level right there. I can mark one side of the pipe and then swap it around, and I can mark it, make sure I'm level here, and then I mark the other side of the pipe, and that should all be level. Mark that right there. And do the other side, same deal. Go ahead and mark this side. All right, and then do the same thing down here on the other end. Mark them as well, and then we'll have 2 points that we can draw between. All right, so now I should be able to undo this guy, take this out, and I should have 2 points on here, a point there, another point down there, and I should be able to take a straight edge and draw a line between those two, or with my straight edge here, take this guy and line that up. I should be able to draw straight through there. Now we've got this marked. One side, we've got a nice little mark that runs through here. Then just flip this thing around. Do the same deal on the other side. All right, and then now we've got a nice mark there. Let's see, one mark right there. Flip it around, another mark right there. They should be exactly opposite of each other on the pipe. That's what we want, man. That's what we want. Now we've got our 2 lines, one here and one here. We want to quarter this pipe, so we want the other lines here and here that are exactly in between those. And so what I'm going to do is, we've got a line here. I'm going to turn this, I'm going to stick it in here, try and make sure we get this thing level. Basically going to line up my line here, my line on the bottom, try and get this thing so that it is straight up and down. So right there. Now, I'm going to take this, set same way it was before. We're at half the diameter of this pipe, 3/4 inch down. Get my level here, level, and then we mark. All right, and then when we're done, we should have this guy right here, which is a nicely quartered pipe. We've got the mark here, 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 and here. So there's that, and now we can go to our tubing notching. All right, so I want to notch this guy so that it will fit over this pipe right here. First, we're gonna make sure it's cut at 90 because we're doing a 90-degree joint like that. Then measure down 1/2 inch, which is 1/3 of this pipe diameter. From there, we'll measure from this line over to this other line that we quartered. So we'll draw from here over to here. Just connect those two lines, very sort of rudimentary. Connecting there, and then gonna do the same thing on this side, draw another line, and then that's basically, I'm gonna take my saw and just go, my angle grinder, and just go ring like that. I'm basically just cutting an angle straight through like that on the pipe, but this gives me a guide. So I end up with something like that. And we'll do the same thing, rotate it over fully 180, and then we'll do the same thing, measure down here. Draw our lines. So now we've got it on both sides like that, and now you can kind of see how that pipe, once we cut that out, will fit down in here. On this side will come up over the side of the pipe. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and use our little angle grinder here and make our cuts. Basically right there, so a rough cut. And now I'm gonna go ahead and clean this thing up a little bit with the grinder, and then we'll move to the flat. Got it cleaned up quite a bit more. We're looking a little bit better. Let's actually test fit it onto the pipe. And it's not bad, dude. So now you can see the pipe fits up on here quite nicely, actually. So, and that is what we're looking for right there. Stands up on its own even. Yeah. Stands up on its own. That's a good fit. So that is our fitment right there. We're happy with that. Our next step is to sort of rotate this thing down and try and figure out what this is going to be over here. In theory, according to my drawings, I should have exactly 15 inches measuring from the inside here to the inside there. And then my angle, in theory, is supposed to have like a 36-degree like cut in through there. Like the way this is bent is more of an art than a science as to how I actually got to this bend. So we made it work. We got the visual we want, but we don't exactly have the precision that we want. So we have to work with something outside of the original design slightly in order to figure out what this angle is now, so I can make my correct angle of my cut on this guy here. I'm gonna play with this. I'm gonna get up here and I'm gonna visually sort of set these things. On this one, I've got a mark right here. Right here, I've got a mark. And then up to this pipe right here, where it's sitting at this angle, it's like 1 3/8 of an inch. Once I notch this thing down and cut it, this will come down and it'll sit right in there. And from here where it's sitting now up to there, 1 3/8 of an inch. I go over to the other side over there and I measure this tube on this side of the tube down 1/2 an inch where it's going to be notched into. And then from that point, the bottom of the notch, I'm measuring up and I'm pushing this tube up off 1 3/8 of an inch. So from the bottom of my notch here to this pipe, and from the bottom of my notch here to this pipe are the same distance. And so now I know that this pipe is at the right angle in relation to both of these pipes. And so I can go ahead and notch this guy and notch that guy. This pipe should just come straight down and sit right in there perfectly. All right, and then we figure out what this angle actually is. All right, so I think that's it right there. And we're at like 30 degrees. All right, then go ahead and get my saw out and then set my fence here on my saw to the same angle as my angle finder. All right, now in order to make sure that I got my cut is lined up with the cut on the bottom, right? So we got this notch down here, right? And this pipe runs like that. I wanna make sure that this is the same way. All right, then in order to get this thing in here and make sure that it's level, make sure this thing is rotated, the pipe is rotated the way we want it to be. We got this line on the side, this mark, and that mark should be, if I measure from my saw up to that line, it should be 3/4 of an inch. That should be exactly halfway through the pipe. So if I measure up to there and align the pipe at 3/4 of an inch, then it should be perfectly straight. All right, let's see how it fits up on this guy. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and notch this guy. To do that, basically measuring down 1/2 an inch on either side. Should be able to draw a line from here to here. that. Same over here. That. And up here, it's almost straight across. Yeah, it's like straight across pretty much. Nice, dude. I think that will work. I mean, it's not precise fit right now because the other end here is still a little bit too high. I still need to notch this guy out. All right, so in order to end up with the correct angle here on this cut right here, I've been doing some test cuts with some scrap tubing I've got here to make sure that I've got my angle here and my chop saw dialed in correctly. And this really just demonstrates how little confidence I have in my measuring abilities. I think I've got it correct here now. So now I'm gonna go ahead and cut this guy. All right, and then in order to make sure I've got this pipe level the way I want it to in the chop saw, and this is a little bit more of a challenge. The first cut we did had just a straight pipe. This one has a curve, a bend in it already. So there's all this weight pulling it down over there. And we want to make sure this is accurate and straight. And so I've got a level on here to make sure that is level with everything else here. And then I've also got this little stand that I made before, which really helps because it's the same level as my chop saw. So I can have all that and that helps balance it out. And then also, again, if I measure that, the line going on the side here, it should be at 3/4 of an inch up from that chop saw. The line's right here, that little black mark there. That thing is right at 3/4 of an inch. All right, I'm pretty happy with my fitment on these. I like the way everything's meeting up, all these things. I had to do a little bit of finessing to get these guys to fit up nicely. Fortunately, it was on the back side here, so I just had to carve out a little bit more of this pipe here so this would sit down and get a nice fitment up here, so it didn't affect my dimensions here that I really are important, that height there on the inside. This is all fitted up real nice at this point, and now I'm gonna go ahead, I'm going to cut the excess material off of here, and then I'm going to cap this and cap that one over there. All right, so I've made up a couple caps here to go on the end of the pipe. I'm gonna go ahead and weld these on here now and then sand it all down so it looks all like it's a one piece. All right, so here's this guy. Both of the ends are capped. Now, I wanna move over to this end, and we've got our head tube right here. That guy is nice solid. And what I wanna do is figure out the angle here. We want 27 degrees, but that's relative to a straight line going up this way. So we need to sort of figure out where that straight line is, so then we can figure out how to cut that angle. All right, so in theory, I've got a straight line here on the bottom. This pipe here, the bottom tube is lined up on that line. Line my square up on that line. I should be able to draw a 90-degree straight up through here. I run this through all the way under here. All right, and then the head tube in relation to this guy, I actually want the head tube out a little bit. I want it to be out into here, I think somewhere. So like something like an inch, inch and a half maybe on this pipe sticking out. And then we'll have a gusset that comes in and reinforces that. Mark this where I want it. Cut it at 27 degrees. It's notching it out. And then we have to sort of weld on the gussets here. And then we weld on the head tube. And the reason for that is because we want to minimize distortions and whatnot. So if we weld the gussets on first, that will reduce any distortions from when the metal cools down. It's going to shrink just a little bit, and that could pull this head tube in a little bit and change our rake. Basically, I'm going to put this in here, and it's going to be about like this. So a large portion of this is going to be below this pipe down here, and so there'll be a lot of gusset material here, which could pull that in and change our rake on this. All right, so this guy, I've got it marked right now at an inch. I actually kind of want that to be the bottom of the notch. So I'm actually going to cut this, I'm going to mark it out at an inch and a half. So we'll put it out a little bit further than that. That's where I will cut the angle on this thing. Then we'll go ahead and notch it, and that will bring the actual head tube back into here. All right, and again, we've got a bit of a contraption here with the pipe and our little stand way out here to keep everything level. So now I've got my angle in here. I've double checked it several times. Check it, son. Got nice angle cut on there now. Getting somewhere. We are getting somewhere. All right, now I'm gonna start thinking about notching this guy. All right, now we've got this marked where we're gonna notch this thing. I'm gonna go ahead and notch it now. This is a bold move on my part. All right, so here we go. Here's our fit up on the head tube here. Pretty happy with that. It's looking good so far. That head tube looks disproportionately large compared to the rest of the bike. All right, there it is, folks. All right, so for my gusset, I've got this. It's an 1/8 inch thick plate, about 4 inches wide, that I'm basically gonna stick in here like that, approximately, so that it sort of goes from this outside ridge here, this ridge, and then over into here. And this is where it gets a little bit confusing for me, not having done this before, not knowing. My one book, my sort of engineering book on motorcycle design and construction, says that I want to weld this piece in last. So that stays out there. I put the gusset on and all that stuff first, then roll this thing in. Then weld the gusset and all this stuff in on this guy. But my problem, if I did it that way, is that I then could not weld anything down in here. It makes me feel a little funny, which I suppose is not a big deal. I'm gonna put 2 of these gussets, one on either side, on this side, and then one back on that side as well. I suppose it's okay, because all the forces that are gonna try and pull this thing this way are gonna be held by that gusset, right? Like, I'm not gonna be depending upon that at all. I'm gonna have a lot more material with the gusset holding this head tube on there, steering neck on there. So I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do at this point in terms of the gusset. What I am definitely going to do though is weld up all this other stuff. We'll get the rest of this frame, all of this stuff here, all fully welded up, and I can put that on my table jig basically and do that, clamp everything down. All right, this is it. This is one of the nicest things I've made ever in my life. Very happy with how this has come out so far. This is the main part of the frame here, and I've got it all welded up. And we're pretty stoked about the welds on this. They're not like super fancy, but these are going to be very functional. I'm gonna attach the steering neck in the next video and figure out those gussets and how all that's gonna go together. And then we'll be on to the little wishbones on the back, the rear wheel aspect of this frame. So see you next time. Thanks for watching and keep on wrenching. So if you want to know more, maybe about how I bent the tubes for this frame, or some of the tools I might have used in this video, or you might have seen in the background of this video, there are videos for all of these things on the YouTube channel. So go check out HooptieDoodle and be entertained, everyone. See you next time.